We could still talk about it.
So what is this?
This is an international famous 1 horsepower engine. It is a hit and miss engine. It runs on gasoline. What hit and miss engine means is, so the engine will fire and fire till it comes up to RPM. Then once it hits its RPM, the governor kicks the ignition out on the mag. So the engine will then coast until the RPM drops back down, and then it'll allow it to fire again. It was a fuel savings idea, but it never really, they phased it out, so it must have not really equated to a savings. I'm not sure what year it is. The owners of this engine would be Eric, Lloyd, and Terry. We all 3 bought it at an estate sale last year. This one here is also a hit and miss engine. This is a 1.5 horse John Deere. Same thing, gasoline engine. Similar concept with the engine will coast until the RPM drops down, then it'll allow it to fire again. Both of these engines are igniter engines. Here, instead of a spark plug, it has an igniter with 2 contacts that make and break, and that's what makes your spark to run them. This engine here, this is a Fairbanks Morris 1.5 horse. This is a kerosene engine. So what it did here is you had your starter tank for gasoline. You started the engine on gasoline. Once it got up to temperature, then you switched over to the big tank on the mixer, and it ran on a kerosene or distillate. It was just a cheaper fuel option. Now this engine here is throttle governed, so it will not coast. It fires every time.
So to where you just randomly hear like the putt.
Yes, that would be the hit and miss engines. They'll coast and then they'll fire. This is a 3 to 5 horsepower McCormick LA model. This is just a gasoline engine, throttle governed. Once again, we're getting newer as we progress down the line.
Can I ask, so just real quick, what would they have used hit and miss engines for back in the day?
To pump water. You could have used it to grind feed. It was just the first engines that farmers started to get because we didn't have electricity at that time. Okay. I think this one's a 1928, but I'm not 100% on the year on that. Okay. So this was just the farmers, since they didn't have electricity, this did a lot of those tasks. An engine like this would have ran like a milk cooler or something like that on the later farms, but it also could have ran a feed grinder, corn sheller, anything like that. Your small horsepower needs. Okay. If you're ready, I'll try to start this one.
You should turn on while you're trying to do it.
Okay, so you hear it coasting and then you hear it firing.
You want to go around this way? So, did anything get you in particularly to hit and miss engines?
I just grew up around this stuff. My dad and grandpa have always collected stuff.
Okay.
So I've just been around it my whole life. Okay. And then we just recently started getting into engines.
Okay.
So they've always collected.
So have they always collected like this type of thing, or like farm tractors, or? Mostly
farm tractors, blacksmith stuff. Okay. Old wagons.
So they were just a collector of many things.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you have to restore any of these? Like, did you do an actual restoration on them?
These 2 engines are out of Roger's estate. So
okay.
There's a 3rd engine we have that's not here that we bought at Roger's sale when he passed away. So Roger had, I don't know if Roger restored them or bought them in this condition, but as long as we've had them, we haven't done anything to these two engines other than basic maintenance.
Okay. So how long have you owned them? The two from Roger?
I think this is year 2.
Okay. And then is the kerosene one, is this considered like more rare because it is kerosene or not?
No. And this engine here is my grandfather's. He bought it in an estate sale. And this engine here, we built a cart for it.
Okay.
And stuff. It was non-running. Okay. This engine here, we bought about 3 weeks ago. So it was already restored. I just had to do some finishing touches to put the decals on and get it running. I had to do some internal motor work to get it running.
Okay. So do you typically take these to a lot of different tractor shows, or do they just primarily go to certain ones, or?
Chickentown Gas and Steam in here.
Okay.
Tired Iron, they might go there this year. Last year, I just took a couple Briggs and Strattons. That's primarily what I collect, is Briggs and Stratton engines.
Okay.
Okay, so this engine here is a throttle govern like we talked about. You can hear that it's firing continuously. And this is a 3 to 5 horsepower International or McCormick LA. On this engine here, your RPM would have adjusted up here, and that's where you got your horsepower differential. So high RPM gave you your 5 horsepower. Low RPM gave you your 3 horsepower.
Okay. And you said typically they would use this for like milk coolers, that kind of thing?
Milk coolers, and same thing, grinding feed, corn shellers, stuff like that. This one here is considerably newer than like that one down there. I'm not sure on a year on it though. And then once we get into the Briggs and Stratton engines, so these are wash machine engines. So everybody's heard of Maytag. Maytag built their own engines, but companies like Montgomery Ward ran Briggs and Stratton engines. So what we have here is a Briggs and Stratton model WMB. This is a 1947. And this is a Briggs and Stratton WM. So they're both the same horsepower, same size engine. The basic difference on a WM versus a WMB is spark plug location. And what we have here, this is a 1939 Briggs and Stratton Model A. And this is a Briggs and Stratton Model B. I'm unsure on the year on it. And both of these engines here I've just recently acquired. So on the washing machine engines, they had a flexible exhaust pipe that would have ran outside of the house. The washing machine would have been inside.
Oh.
So this would have ran out through a window, or maybe they had a hole like in the basement door to run the exhaust out so the washing machine was inside. And we'll see if one of those will start. These are kickstart engines. Here you have your Kickstarter. Yeah, the wash machine would have been belt driven off the pulley on the side, and it would have bolted underneath the wash machine. And these don't have a carburetor, they have a mixer, so there's no float in the mixer like a normal carburetor would have. There's a little check valve in the tank, and the engine draws the fuel on the intake stroke. It works the little check valve up and down. It has a butterfly in it like a carburetor, but they have no float, so they're, I guess you'd call it just like a primitive carburetor. Honestly, I have no idea how long it would run. I only put a tiny bit of gas in it because we're only running them at the shows.
Could you imagine your washing machine sounding like that?
Okay, so this engine here is crank start.
You said it's crank start.
Yeah, it's crank start, gasoline engine. So you push in on the crank starter on it, then this is your compression release to get it rolling over.
So what would they have used something like this with a crank start for?
I'm not sure what this Briggs engine's out of. Sometimes SpeedX garden tractors ran Briggs and Stratton cast iron series engines, but I really don't know the history of what this one came out of.
Okay.
It could have ran a various different things.
Okay. So the crank start isn't like, that's not an, I don't want to say a less common thing, or?
Yeah, it makes it a little bit more rare. Most of the engines would be rope start, like this Model A. The Model B is more rare, being crank start.
Okay.
Or why they would do the
Yeah. Yeah, the putt now makes sense of what it's actually doing. So yeah.
Yeah, it holds the exhaust valve open. I guess I didn't touch on that. The exhaust valve stays open on them, and the mag, it doesn't allow it to spark. The linkage doesn't go and trip the igniter, so that's what allows them to coast. Then when the RPM drops off, the exhaust valve closes, and it lets the mag trip, and then the engine fires, and then comes back up to speed. Now, if you put the engine under a heavy load, then it can fire all the time. Whatever it takes to maintain its RPM is how many times it'll fire. So here they'll coast really far, but if we had a heavy load on it, then it may hit every time if it needs to. It's all based off the RPM and what the governor's doing.
Well, now it makes sense because at Chickentown we saw one, and I feel like I was like waiting for it to like I was like, let's go, and it just wasn't. I mean, eventually did, but it seemed like it just.
Yeah.
But it was a big one, like on a trailer.
Yeah. Those engines have a lot heavier flywheel, so they can coast a lot longer. There's more momentum on the flywheel and allow it to roll.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for taking the time.